Hello and welcome to KPMG's 10 Minutes on Tax, where we discuss some topical tax issues in 10 minutes. Today I'm talking to Mike Hayes, tax partner in KPMG Ireland and KPMG's global leader on climate change. Hi Mike. As we head towards COP26, where do you think the world is really at in terms of dealing with the global climate challenge?
Hello Ciara. I think we're at a very important juncture in the fight against climate change. This week in New York, the United Nations General Assembly is having its annual meeting, and it's clear to anybody who's watching the news, climate change is the number one issue. The UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson addressed the Assembly last night, where he really highlighted the importance of immediate action. This is not something that's in the distance. This is as immediate as the COVID-19 crisis. And what's really happening now, Ciara, as we come out of the COVID-19 pandemic, is politicians, investors, regulators, and ordinary citizens really now are starting to understand just how serious this climate change thing is. So we are at the beginning of a period of pronounced action in the fight against climate change.
It seems that tax is really starting to be part of the debate, with things such as the carbon border adjustment mechanism and carbon tax. Do you think tax policy is going to be used as a stick, I suppose, to force change?
All we need to do, Ciara, to think about this is to look at history. What is the one technique that governments have used over the years to change behaviour, either at a corporate level or an individual level? It's tax policy.
Yeah, we see it all the time.
We see it all the time, and this is why in budgets every year, it's all about governments want to achieve certain social and economic objectives. What do they do to achieve that? They use fiscal and tax policy to make those changes. So this actually shouldn't come as a surprise to us. What has surprised me is how little tax has been spoken about in the context of climate. As we now look at the back end of 2021 and we move into 2022, I think what we're going to see in budgetary policy, that governments are not just going to think about the social and financial landscape, they're going to be thinking about the climate landscape. And what we're going to see is we're going to see measures introduced into budgets to actually use tax both in a positive way and in a punitive way. And if I give you just two very simple examples, I think you referred to the carbon border adjustment mechanism. This is something completely new that the European Union has developed, and it is almost certainly going to implement this from later on in 2023 or 2024. This is an attempt to go after what we call carbon leakage, which is the importation of high carbon but cheaper goods from outside of the European Union into the European Union. Okay. The European Union has said no longer, we are not going to allow that because we have a low carbon ambition. And what they're going to do, in very simple terms, is they're going to tax those high carbon goods coming into the European Union.
And what about the role of tax incentivization?
So this is one of my pet hobbies, and I've been preaching this message. Over the last 5 or 10 years, and you know this from your work in tax across the international and corporate landscape, Ciara, tax incentivization was very much a thing of the past. People like me who are a little bit older than you, we grew up on tax incentives, whether it was in my very young days, export sales relief and manufacturing relief and various other measures in the Irish tax system, all of which were incredibly effective for various reasons, which we don't need to go into. They've fallen out of favour. But I'm actually calling for tax incentivization to be put back on the climate agenda, because it is not just about punitive taxes such as carbon taxes or the carbon border adjustment mechanism. It's really about encouraging people to do the right type of things. So tax incentivization is starting to come back into the fore. And to give you an example, the Confederation of British Industry made a very detailed submission to the British government a couple of months ago to really start thinking about the incentivization side of tax to drive change in behaviour. And the problem with the climate agenda, Ciara, it's such a vast agenda with so many different aspects and so many different challenges. This is not an either or. We will need both the punitive tax measures, but we will also need the incentivizing tax measures.
Yeah. And what areas do you think the Irish government should be looking at as part of Budget 2022, to incentivise and to do something innovative in terms of the climate agenda?
So I have three areas in particular, all of which represent different areas of passion for me. So the first one is the whole area of energy efficiency and getting people across the country to understand just how powerful energy efficiency solutions are. And they're not necessarily expensive solutions, they're solutions which can reduce electricity and in turn reduce carbon emissions. So something that incentivizes the take-up of energy efficiency in the home is something I feel very passionate about. And I always regard energy efficiency as one of the low-hanging fruit of the climate agenda, but not enough people care or learn about it. And I think some measures in that regard would be very effective. The second one is green technology innovation. We are not going to get to a net zero future without unbelievable amounts of new innovation, improving the existing technologies and developing new technologies. The great thing, Ciara, is that, as is the case in any time when the world has been in crisis, innovation is happening. Innovators are springing up all over the world, including in this country, and I'm working with some really incredible innovators, but we need to support them. So I would love to see measures that go way beyond the existing R&D tax credit to incentivize innovation. And I'd like to go one step further. One of the thoughts that actually some colleagues in KPMG here in Dublin suggested, which I think is a brilliant idea, is incentivization to create a green innovation hub in Dublin. Okay. This is a whole new global market that's going to, some country is going to be the leader on it, and I'm really pushing and trying to say to the Irish government, think seriously about this. We are an ideal location to act as a hub for green innovation. The third area is probably a more controversial one, which is really the idea of giving a green tax credit for individuals for investing green. It doesn't have to be a huge tax credit, but anything which helps to reorientate capital away from the conventional world of investing into unsustainable activities into a more sustainable, green-focused investment future is good. And this is starting to come up in discussions all over the world. There was a recent study done by the Mercer Pension Group which said that the most effective individual action an individual can take, way above what you eat or how you go and travel in terms of going to work or flying abroad, is the investment policy you adopt in your own pension fund. So I think there's a message there that I would ask the government to consider in the context of Budget 2022.
Very interesting. Any final thoughts before we finish up?
I have a message actually, which is, as you know, Ciara, I've been preaching this thing about climate change and decarbonisation for many years, and I hate to say it, but I've been right in the sense that it has come to the fore. It is a really, really serious challenge. But unfortunately, in terms of the global response, we have seen nothing yet. We're only at the very beginning of a really significant response right across society. But in terms of the tax policy, whether it's the punitive measures we spoke about or whether it's the incentivization measures, we are going to see a lot more because governments get it and they're going to start taking action pretty soon.
Great message. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Ciara.
For more information on climate change or how KPMG can help, please contact Mike Hayes, myself, Ciara Rafter, or your usual KPMG service team.